At dinner, my daughter said, "My mom smells like pee." I stood up and kicked her out of the house. But what I discovered in her purse made me realize she'd been poisoning me for months to steal my inheritance. The revenge I planned would destroy her reputation forever. My name is Teresa, and I live in a beautiful ranch-style house in Tucson, Arizona, that I've called home for 32 years. It's the house where I raised my children, where I celebrated holidays and birthdays, and where I planned to spend my golden years surrounded by the family I had worked so hard to create and maintain. Tonight was supposed to be one of those perfect family dinners that I had been looking forward to all week. My daughter Carmen, who is 38 and works as a marketing manager for a large corporation in Phoenix, had driven down with her husband David and their 2 teenage children, Isabella and Miguel Jr., to celebrate my birthday a week early, since they would be traveling on my actual birthday. I had spent the entire day preparing Carmen's favorite meal from childhood, mole poblano with handmade tortillas, Mexican rice with saffron, refried beans with queso fresco, and tres leches cake for dessert. It was an elaborate meal that required hours of preparation, but I wanted everything to be perfect for this special family gathering. Carmen arrived at 5 o'clock with her family, and initially everything seemed normal. She hugged me when she came in, complimented the smell of the food cooking, and asked if there was anything she could do to help with the final preparations. David was polite and friendly, talking about his new job at a tech company, while Isabella and Miguel Jr. seemed happy to see their grandmother and excited about the birthday celebration. We sat down to dinner at 6:30, and for the first hour, the conversation was pleasant and normal. Carmen talked about her work, David shared stories about his colleagues, and the teenagers told me about school and their friends. I felt happy and grateful to have my family gathered around my table, sharing food and conversation in the warm, comfortable atmosphere of the home where Carmen had grown up. But then something shifted in Carmen's demeanor. She started making small comments about the house looking dated and asking questions about my future plans that felt more like interrogations than casual conversation. She wondered aloud whether it was practical for me to continue living alone in such a large house, and whether I had thought about simplifying my living situation. I tried to redirect the conversation back to more pleasant topics, but Carmen seemed determined to focus on what she perceived as problems with my lifestyle and living arrangements. She made comments about the neighborhood changing and the house requiring too much maintenance for someone my age to handle alone. But what happened next crossed a line that changed everything between us forever. We were finishing the main course, and I was getting ready to serve the tres leches cake, when Carmen suddenly wrinkled her nose and made an expression of disgust. "Mom, I have to ask you something, and I don't want you to get defensive about it." "What is it, Mija?" "When was the last time you took a shower?" I was confused by the question. "I took a shower this morning, just like I do every morning." "Why would you ask me that?" Carmen looked around the table at David and the children, as if she was gathering witnesses for what she was about to say. "Because you smell like urine, Mom. It's really noticeable, and it's been bothering me since we got here." The entire table went silent. Isabella and Miguel Jr. looked mortified. David stared at his plate, and I felt like I had been slapped across the face. "Carmen, that's not true. I don't smell like anything." "Mom, I know this is uncomfortable to talk about, but elderly people sometimes develop incontinence issues and don't realize it. It's nothing to be embarrassed about, but it is something that needs to be addressed." "I don't have incontinence issues, Carmen. I'm not incontinent, and I don't smell like urine." "Mom, I can smell it from here." "David can smell it too." "Can't you, David?" David looked extremely uncomfortable, but nodded reluctantly. "There is a bit of an odor, Teresa." I felt humiliated and confused. I had taken a shower that morning. I was wearing clean clothes, and I had no reason to believe that I smelled bad. But my own daughter and son-in-law were telling me that I reeked of urine in front of my grandchildren. "Maybe you should see a doctor," Carmen continued. "There are medications and treatments for these kinds of problems. You don't have to suffer in silence." "I'm not suffering from anything, Carmen. And I don't appreciate you talking about this in front of the children." "Grandma, maybe you should listen to Mom," Isabella said gently. "She just wants to help you." That's when Carmen said the words that shattered our relationship. "Mom, the truth is that this isn't the first time we've noticed this problem. Every time we visit, there's this smell. We've been talking about it for months, wondering how to bring it up without hurting your feelings. You've been talking about me behind my back? We've been concerned about you." This odor issue is just one of several things that have us worried about your ability to take care of yourself. What other things? Well, you've been forgetting things more often. Last time we were here, you told us the same story 3 times, and the house isn't as clean as it used to be. I noticed dust on the furniture and dishes in the sink. I looked around my dining room, which I had spent hours cleaning and decorating for this dinner. Everything was spotless. The table was beautifully set, and I had prepared an elaborate meal from scratch. The idea that my house wasn't clean enough for Carmen's standards felt like another insult. Carmen, my house is perfectly clean. Mom, I'm not trying to criticize you. I'm trying to help you understand that there are some changes happening that you might not be aware of. The only thing I'm becoming aware of is that my daughter thinks it's appropriate to humiliate me in front of my grandchildren. I'm not trying to humiliate you, Mom. I'm trying to have an honest conversation about your health and safety. By telling me I smell like pee at my birthday dinner? By addressing issues that need to be addressed. That's when I stood up from the table and looked directly at Carmen. Get out of my house. Mom, don't be dramatic. Get out of my house right now. All of you. Take your concerns and your insults and leave. Mom, we're just trying to help. You're not trying to help me, Carmen. You're trying to humiliate me and make me feel like I'm incompetent, and I won't tolerate that in my own home. But Carmen's response revealed that this confrontation had been planned. Fine, Mom. If that's how you want to handle this, we'll leave. But don't call us when you fall down and can't get up, or when you forget to turn off the stove and burn the house down. Carmen's words were cruel and calculated, designed to make me feel afraid and incompetent. But they also revealed that she had been thinking about scenarios where I might need help, which suggested that this conversation about my supposed problems was part of a larger agenda. Carmen, what are you really trying to say? I'm trying to say that you're getting older, and you need to start thinking realistically about your future care needs. My future care needs? Yes. Whether that means hiring help to come to the house, or moving to a place where you can get the assistance you need. You mean like a nursing home? I mean like an assisted living facility where trained professionals can help you with personal hygiene and household management. So that was it. Carmen wanted me to move out of my house and into an institution where other people would control my daily life. The comments about my smell and my housekeeping weren't expressions of concern. They were pretexts for convincing me that I was incompetent to live independently. I'm not moving to an assisted living facility, Carmen. Mom, you might not have a choice if your condition continues to deteriorate. My condition? What condition? Your hygiene issues, your memory problems, your inability to maintain your home properly. If these things get worse, we might have to make decisions for your own safety. Carmen was threatening to have me declared incompetent, so she could force me to move out of my house, and she was doing it on my birthday, in front of my grandchildren, under the guise of caring about my welfare. But what I discovered after they left made me realize this was about much more than living arrangements. After Carmen and her family left, I spent several hours replaying the conversation and trying to understand what had just happened. Carmen's behavior had been cruel and inexplicable, but it had also been oddly specific and systematic. She had mentioned multiple problems with my competency. She had gathered witnesses to my supposed deficiencies, and she had immediately jumped to discussing institutional care. This felt less like a spontaneous expression of concern and more like the execution of a plan. I decided to do something I had never done before. I searched through Carmen's belongings that she had left behind in the guest room where she always stayed when visiting. She had been so eager to leave after our confrontation that she had forgotten her purse, which was sitting on the dresser next to several other personal items. Inside Carmen's purse, I found a small notebook filled with handwritten notes about my behavior, my house, and my financial situation. The notes were dated going back several months, and they read like a case file being built against someone. March 15, Mom repeated story about Mrs. Garcia's garden twice in one conversation. March 22, dishes left in sink overnight, unusual for her. April 3, Mom seemed confused about what day it was when I called. April 18, house smells musty, possible hygiene issues. Carmen had been systematically documenting anything that could be interpreted as evidence of my declining competency. But the notes weren't just observations. They included plans for what to do with the information. Need to establish pattern of memory loss for competency evaluation. Document housekeeping failures for safety concerns. Get witnesses to hygiene problems. But the most shocking discovery was a business card tucked behind the notebook. The business card belonged to a lawyer named Robert Chen, who specialized in elder law and estate planning. On the back of the card, Carmen had written several notes: competency evaluation, $2,500, guardianship filing, $5,000, property transfer, 3% of value, total estimated fees. Carmen had been consulting with a lawyer about having me declared incompetent and taking control of my property. The estimated fees suggested that my house and other assets were worth enough to justify spending $25,000 on legal proceedings to gain control of them. I also found a real estate flyer for a luxury condominium in Scottsdale, with a note in Carmen's handwriting. Perfect size for mom, close to assisted living if needed. The condo was priced at $800,000, which was significantly more expensive than what I could afford on my Social Security and pension income. But at the bottom of the flyer, Carmen had written, "Mom's house should sell for $650,000. Difference covered by savings account." Carmen had been planning to sell my house and use the proceeds, plus my savings, to buy me a smaller place that would be easier for her to control. She would manage the financial transaction, which would give her access to my money and the ability to determine where I lived. The notebook also contained notes about my daily routines, my medical appointments, and my relationships with neighbors and friends. Carmen had been studying me like a research subject, looking for evidence that could be used to support a claim that I was incompetent to manage my own affairs. But the most damning evidence was a letter I found folded inside the notebook. The letter was addressed to Carmen from the lawyer, Robert Chen, and it outlined the legal strategy for having me declared incompetent. "Dear Miss Rodriguez, based on our consultation, I believe we have a strong case for establishing guardianship over your mother. The documentation you've provided regarding her hygiene issues, memory problems, and housekeeping failures will support our argument that she is no longer capable of caring for herself safely. The key will be getting testimony from witnesses who have observed these problems. Family members, neighbors, and healthcare providers can all provide valuable evidence of your mother's declining capacity. Once guardianship is established, you'll have legal authority to make decisions about her living arrangements, medical care, and financial management. This will allow you to sell her current residence and relocate her to a more appropriate setting. I estimate the entire process will take 3 to 6 months and cost approximately $25,000 in legal fees. However, given the value of your mother's assets, this represents a sound investment in securing your family's financial future. Please call my office to schedule a follow-up appointment to discuss the next steps. Sincerely, Robert Chen, attorney at law." I sat in my bedroom, reading this letter over and over, trying to process the fact that my own daughter had been planning to have me declared mentally incompetent so she could steal my house and control my life. The dinner conversation about my smell and my housekeeping hadn't been an expression of concern. It had been part of a legal strategy to gather evidence and witnesses for a competency hearing. Carmen had invited David and the children not just for a family dinner but to serve as witnesses to my supposed decline. But I wasn't going to let Carmen destroy my life without a fight. The next morning, I called Robert Chen's office and made an appointment to see him, pretending to be a potential client who needed help with elder law issues. I wanted to hear directly from him what Carmen had told him about me and what their plan involved. When I arrived at his office 2 days later, Chen was surprised to see me looking alert, well-groomed, and completely coherent. I could see that I didn't match the description Carmen had given him of a confused, declining elderly woman who needed guardianship. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I wasn't expecting to meet with you directly. Usually in these cases, I work with the family members who are seeking guardianship. I know exactly why you weren't expecting to meet with me. Mr. Chen, my daughter has been telling you that I'm incompetent and need someone else to make decisions for me." Chen looked uncomfortable. "I'm not sure I understand what you're referring to." "I'm referring to the letter you sent to my daughter outlining your strategy for having me declared incompetent so she can take control of my house and my money." Chen's face went pale. "How did you see that letter?" "Because my daughter left it in my house, along with detailed notes about her plan to steal my property." "Mrs. Rodriguez, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "The only misunderstanding is that my daughter thought she could manipulate the legal system to steal from me without me finding out." I pulled out copies of Carmen's notebook and Chen's letter and placed them on his desk. "Mr. Chen, I want you to see what your potential client has really been doing. She's been sedulously documenting false evidence of my incompetency, planning to use my grandchildren as witnesses against me, I'm consulting with you about how to steal my property legally. Chen read through the documents with growing concern. Mrs. Rodriguez, if these documents are authentic, your daughter may have misrepresented the situation to me. She didn't misrepresent the situation, Mr. Chen. She lied about it completely. I'm not incompetent. I don't have hygiene problems. And I don't need a guardian. What I need is protection from a daughter who's trying to commit elder abuse. Chen's response surprised me. Mrs. Rodriguez, I need to be completely honest with you. If your daughter had proceeded with the guardianship case based on the evidence she showed me, I believe she would have failed. What do you mean? I mean that the documentation she provided was weak and circumstantial. Forgetting to do dishes occasionally and repeating a story twice doesn't constitute evidence of incompetency. I was planning to tell her that she needed much stronger evidence before proceeding. But you sent her a letter encouraging her to pursue guardianship. I sent her a letter explaining what the process would involve and what kind of evidence would be required. I wasn't encouraging her to proceed. I was trying to help her understand how difficult it would be to succeed with such a weak case. Chen explained that legitimate guardianship cases require extensive medical documentation, psychological evaluations, and clear evidence of serious cognitive impairment. Carmen's notes about housekeeping and social conversation didn't come close to meeting the legal standard for incompetency. Your daughter seemed to believe that guardianship was a simple process that could be accomplished with minimal evidence, Chen said. I was trying to educate her about the reality of elder law. So, you don't think she could have succeeded in having me declared incompetent?
Based on what I've seen, absolutely not. You're clearly articulate, well-informed, and capable of managing your own affairs. No judge would grant guardianship under these circumstances.
Chen's assessment was reassuring, but it also made me angry that Carmen had put me through emotional trauma based on a plan that was doomed to fail from the beginning. Mr. Chen, what should I do to protect myself from my daughter's attempts to manipulate the legal system? I would recommend documenting this entire incident and consulting with an attorney who specializes in elder abuse cases. What your daughter has done may constitute attempted fraud. But I had a different plan for dealing with Carmen. Instead of immediately involving the police or pursuing legal action against Carmen, I decided to give her one opportunity to explain herself and make things right. I called her and asked her to come back to my house alone, without David and the children, so we could have a private conversation about what had happened at dinner. Carmen agreed to come, probably thinking that I was ready to apologize for overreacting to her helpful suggestions about my health and living situation. She had no idea that I had discovered her plan to have me declared incompetent and steal my property. When Carmen arrived at my house the next evening, she immediately adopted a conciliatory tone. Mom, I'm glad you called. I think we both said some things that we didn't mean the other night. Actually, Carmen, I think we both said exactly what we meant. You told me that I smell like urine and that I'm incompetent to live in my own house. I told you to leave. Both of those things were completely honest. Mom, I wasn't trying to hurt your feelings. I was trying to address some legitimate concerns about your welfare. What concerns? Exactly. The concerns I mentioned at dinner. Your hygiene, your memory, your housekeeping. Carmen, I want to ask you some specific questions, and I want you to give me honest answers. Okay. When exactly did you first notice that I supposedly smell like urine? Carmen looked uncomfortable. I don't remember exactly when it started. Because according to the notes in your purse, you first documented possible hygiene issues on April 18th. Before that date, you had never mentioned any concerns about my smell. Carmen's face went white. What notes? The notes in the little notebook where you've been documenting my supposed incompetency for the past 4 months. The notes that you were planning to use as evidence in a guardianship proceeding. I don't know what you're talking about, Carmen. I found your purse. I found the notebook. I found the lawyer's business card. I found the letter outlining the legal strategy for stealing my house. Carmen's mask finally slipped completely. Carmen stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her calculating whether to continue lying or to admit what she had been doing. Fine, she said, her voice becoming cold and hard. Yes, I've been consulting with a lawyer about guardianship options. And yes, I've been documenting concerning behaviors that suggest you might need help managing your affairs. Concerning behaviors like what? Like the fact that you're 73 years old and living alone in a house that's too big for you. Like the fact that you have no family nearby to help you if something happens. Like the fact that you're sitting on hundreds of thousands of dollars in real estate equity that could be used to provide you with better care. Better care or a better inheritance for you? Both. Mom, you're going to need expensive medical care as you get older. And this house is your biggest asset. It makes sense to convert that asset into something more liquid and more appropriate for your needs. And it makes sense for you to control that conversion process. It makes sense for family members who understand financial planning to help elderly relatives make good decisions about their assets. Carmen was no longer pretending that her plan was motivated by concern for my welfare. She was openly admitting that she wanted control of my property and money. Carmen, what you're describing is elder abuse. What I'm describing is responsible financial planning for an aging parent. By lying about my competency and trying to have me declared mentally incompetent, by addressing real issues before they become serious problems. But Carmen's justification revealed the depth of her callousness. Mom, let me ask you something. What exactly are you planning to do with this house when you die? I'm planning to leave it to you and your brother. And how is that different from me helping you manage it while you're still alive? Because while I'm still alive, it's my house and my decision what to do with it. But you're not making good decisions, Mom. You're wasting money on maintenance and taxes for a house that's too big for your needs. You could sell this place, buy a nice condo, and have hundreds of thousands of dollars left over for travel, healthcare, or anything else you want. And who would manage those hundreds of thousands of dollars? Someone who understands investments and financial planning. Someone like you? Someone like me? Yes. Carmen was essentially arguing that because she was going to inherit my money, eventually she should have access to it now. She had convinced herself that stealing my property was actually helping me manage it more efficiently. Carmen, what about my feelings about my home? What about the fact that I love living here? Mom, feelings aren't a good basis for major financial decisions. This house represents your security and your future, and it needs to be managed rationally. By someone other than me. By someone who can be objective about what's best for your long-term welfare. Carmen had completely rationalized her plan to steal from me. In her mind, she wasn't committing elder abuse. She was providing financial management services that I was too emotional and incompetent to handle myself. But what she said next revealed that her plan was even more sinister than I had realized. Mom, there's something else we need to discuss. What? Your long-term care needs. Even if you stay in this house for now, you're going to do more help as you get older. What kind of help? Help with cooking, cleaning, medication management, transportation. The kind of help that gets expensive very quickly. I can afford to hire help if I need it. Can you? Do you know how much home health care costs? Do you know how much it costs if you need to move to a nursing home? Carmen pulled out a folder that she had brought with her, filled with brochures and cost estimates for various types of elderly care. Home health care costs an average of $25 per hour. If you need help 8 hours a day, that's $200 per day, or $73,000 per year. Assisted living facilities cost an average of $4,500 per month, or $54,000 per year. Nursing homes cost an average of $8,000 per month, or $96,000 per year. Carmen, I don't need any of those services right now. But you will, Mom. And when you do, the costs will eat up your savings very quickly. Unless you have a plan for managing those expenses. What kind of plan? The kind of plan that involves liquidating your real estate assets and investing the proceeds in accounts that are managed by someone who understands healthcare finance. Carmen was painting a picture of inevitable decline and catastrophic expenses that would require her intervention to manage. She was trying to frighten me into believing that I needed her control over my finances to protect myself from future poverty, and you would be the person managing those accounts. I would be the person making sure your money is invested wisely and used appropriately for your care needs, while you're also making decisions about what kind of care I receive and where I receive it, while I'm making sure you get the best possible care that your resources can provide. Carmen's plan was to control every aspect of my life while spending my money to pay for it. Carmen, let me make sure I understand your proposal. You want me to sell my house, give you control of the money, let you decide where I live and what kind of care I receive, all based on your projection that I'm going to become incompetent and expensive to care for. I want you to be realistic about your future and make plans that protect your financial security. My financial security, or your access to my money. Mom, you're being paranoid. I'm trying to help you. By lying about my competency and consulting with lawyers about how to steal my property, by addressing problems before they become crises. Carmen was sticking to her story that everything she had done was motivated by concern for my welfare, despite the overwhelming evidence that she was planning to commit elder abuse for financial gain. Carmen, what if I told you that I've spoken with your lawyer, and he doesn't think you have a strong case for guardianship? What? You spoke with Robert Chen?
I did.
And he told me that the evidence you've collected wouldn't be sufficient to have me declared incompetent. Carmen looked panicked. When did you talk to him? Yesterday. I also told him that I have documentation of your plan to manipulate the guardianship process for financial gain. Mom, you're misunderstanding what? I'm not misunderstanding anything, Carmen. I understand exactly what you've been trying to do, and I understand that your plan was never going to work because I'm not actually incompetent. Carmen was realizing that her scheme had been exposed and that she was in serious legal trouble. What did you tell him? I told him the truth, that my daughter has been systematically documenting false evidence of my incompetency, planning to use my grandchildren as witnesses against me, and consulting with him about how to steal my property through fraudulent guardianship proceedings. Carmen's response revealed that she had been planning this for much longer than I had realized. Mom, you don't understand the bigger picture here. What bigger picture? The bigger picture is that I've been planning for your future care needs for over 2 years. This isn't something I just started thinking about recently. 2 years? Carmen, what have you been doing for 2 years? I've been researching elder care options, consulting with financial planners, and trying to understand what your needs are going to be as you age, without talking to me about any of it. Because I knew you would react exactly the way you're reacting now. You would get defensive and refuse to tell me that these are issues that need to be addressed. Carmen was admitting that she had been planning to take control of my life for 2 years, and that she had always intended to do it without my knowledge or consent. Carmen, what other planning have you been doing without my knowledge? I've been looking at assisted living facilities, researching home healthcare agencies, and consulting with elder law attorneys about the best ways to protect your assets. Protect my assets from what? From being wasted on inappropriate care or eaten up by nursing home costs. By putting them under your control. By making sure they're managed by someone who understands the healthcare system and can advocate for your interests. Carmen had spent 2 years building a comprehensive plan to take control of my life, my money, and my future. The dinner conversation about my smell and housekeeping had been just the final step in a long-term strategy to justify guardianship proceedings. But what she said next made me realize that other family members were involved. Mom, I want you to know that I haven't been planning this alone. What do you mean? I mean that David and I have discussed your situation extensively, and we both agree that you need more support than you're currently getting. What kind of support? The kind of support that comes from having family members who are actively involved in managing your healthcare and financial decisions. David is involved in this plan. David understands elder care issues because his own parents went through similar transitions. He's been very helpful in researching options and understanding what resources are available. So David had been part of Carmen's conspiracy from the beginning. His reluctant agreement at dinner that I smelled bad hadn't been an honest assessment. It had been part of a coordinated effort to gather evidence for guardianship proceedings. What about Isabella and Miguel Jr.? Are they part of your plan too? The children aren't involved in the planning, but they've been concerned about you too. Concerned about what? Concerned about the fact that you live alone, that you don't have family nearby, that you might need help in an emergency. Did you encourage them to be concerned about those things? I encouraged them to think about their grandmother's welfare and safety. Carmen had been manipulating my grandchildren's feelings about me, planting seeds of worry and concern that she could later use to justify her intervention in my life. Carmen, have you discussed your guardianship plan with my brother? I've talked to Uncle Roberto about the family's responsibility to take care of you as you get older. And what did Roberto say? He said that since he lives in California and I live closer to you, it makes sense for me to take the lead on coordinating your care. So Carmen had been building a family coalition to support her plan to control my life. Carmen, I want to show you something. I pulled out my phone and showed her the screen. I had been recording our conversation from the moment she arrived at my house. I've been recording everything you've said tonight about your plan to take control of my property and my life. Carmen's face went completely white. You've been recording me, just like you've been documenting me. The difference is that everything you've recorded about me has been lies and exaggerations, while everything I've recorded about you has been your honest admission of planning elder abuse. Mom, you can't record me without my permission. Actually, I can. Arizona is a one-party consent state, which means I can record conversations that I'm part of without the other person's knowledge or permission. Carmen was realizing that not only had her plan failed, but she had also provided me with evidence of her criminal intentions. What are you planning to do with that recording? I'm planning to use it to protect myself from your attempts to manipulate the legal system. Mom, if you release that recording, you'll destroy our family. Carmen, you destroyed our family when you decided to steal from me and lie about my competency. I wasn't trying to steal from you. I was trying to help you plan for your future. By taking control of my money and my life without my consent, by making sure you have the resources and support you need as you age. Carmen was still trying to frame her elder abuse plan as helpful family assistance, even though she had been caught red-handed planning to commit fraud. But what I said next surprised her. Carmen, I'm going to give you one chance to make this right. What do you mean? I mean that I'm not going to immediately report your attempted elder abuse to the police or pursue legal action against you. If you agree to certain conditions. What conditions? First, you will never again contact lawyers about guardianship proceedings involving me without my knowledge and explicit consent. Okay. Second, you will never again document my behavior for the purpose of building a case against my competency. Okay. Third, you will apologize to Isabella and Miguel Jr. for using them as witnesses in your attempt to humiliate me and gather evidence against me. Mom, the kids don't know. The kids know that their mother told their grandmother that she smells like urine and needs professional care. They know that you turned a birthday dinner into an intervention, and they deserve to know that what they witnessed was part of a plan to steal from their grandmother. I don't want to involve the children in this. You already involved the children when you used them as witnesses in your scheme. Carmen was realizing that her actions had consequences that extended beyond our relationship to her relationship with her own children. Fourth, you will return every document, business card, and piece of correspondence related to your guardianship plan. I can do that. And fifth, you will give me written documentation that you renounce any claim to control my property or my healthcare decisions, unless I specifically request your help. Mom, what if you actually do need help in the future? If I need help in the future, I'll ask for it. But I'll ask for it on my terms, not because you've manipulated the legal system to force me to accept it. Carmen's response told me everything I needed to know about whether she had learned anything from this experience. Mom, I can't agree to some of those conditions. Which ones? I can't agree to renouncing my responsibility to look out for your welfare as you get older. Carmen, I'm not asking you to renounce your responsibility to care about me. I'm asking you to renounce your claim to control my life without my consent. But what if you become incompetent and can't make good decisions for yourself? Then we'll address that situation when and if it happens, through proper legal channels that include my input and consent. What if you're too incompetent to give meaningful consent? Carmen, do I seem incompetent to you right now? No, but do I seem incompetent to manage my own affairs, make my own decisions, and protect myself from people who want to take advantage of me? No, but that could change. And when and if it changes, we'll deal with it appropriately. But we won't deal with it by having you lie about my current competency and manipulate the legal system. Carmen was still clinging to the idea that she needed to maintain some level of control over my future, even though her plan to gain that control had been completely exposed as fraudulent. Mom, I can't just ignore warning signs if I see them. What warning signs, Carmen? The warning signs you fabricated in your notebook? The hygiene problems you made up? The memory issues you exaggerated?
I didn't make those things up.
Carmen, you documented that I supposedly forgot what day it was when you called me on April 3rd, but I checked my phone records, and you didn't call me on April 3rd. You called me on April 5th, and we had a perfectly normal conversation about your work presentation. Carmen looked caught. I might have gotten the dates mixed up. You might have gotten the facts mixed up too. Just like you got mixed up about me smelling like urine and me having housekeeping problems, and me repeating stories. Mom, maybe I was wrong about some of the details, but I wasn't wrong about the overall concern. What overall concern? The concern that you're getting older and you need more support. Carmen, needing more support as I age is not the same thing as being incompetent to manage my own life. That's when I realized that Carmen would never admit she was wrong. Carmen, I can see that you're not willing to acknowledge that what you did was wrong, and you're not willing to commit to stopping this behavior. Mom, I'm willing to be more careful about how I approach these issues in the future. More careful about how you approach stealing from me. More careful about how I communicate my concerns about your welfare. Your concerns about my welfare are based on lies and fabrications designed to support a fraudulent legal case. My concerns about your welfare are based on legitimate observations about changes in your behavior and living situation. Carmen was never going to admit that she had been planning to commit elder abuse. She was going to continue insisting that everything she had done was motivated by love and concern, regardless of the evidence to the contrary. Carmen, since you won't agree to my conditions, I'm going to have to protect myself in other ways. What do you mean? I mean that I'm going to report your attempted elder abuse to the appropriate authorities. Mom, you can't do that. It will destroy my reputation, my career, my family. You should have thought about that before you decided to steal from your mother. I wasn't stealing from you. You were planning to take control of my property and my money without my consent, based on fraudulent evidence of my incompetency. That's theft, Carmen. It's not theft if it's for your own good. Who decides what's for my own good? Carmen. You? The lawyer you paid to help you steal from me? Or me, the person whose life and money you're trying to control? Carmen was becoming more agitated and desperate as she realized that her plan had completely backfired. Mom, if you report this to the police, it won't just hurt me. It will hurt David and Isabella and Miguel Jr. Is that really what you want? What I want is for my daughter to stop trying to steal from me and control my life. If you're not willing to stop, then yes, I'm willing to involve law enforcement. But we're family. Family members don't lie about each other's competency and conspire with lawyers to steal each other's property. Carmen made one last desperate attempt to manipulate me. Mom, please don't do this. I know I made mistakes, but I was just trying to help you. I love you, and I don't want anything bad to happen to you. Carmen, if you love me, why did you try to have me declared incompetent? Because I was scared that something would happen to you and I wouldn't be able to help. So you decided to take away my ability to make my own decisions? I decided to make sure that someone would be able to make decisions for you if you couldn't make them yourself. Without asking me what I wanted or how I felt about it, because I knew you would say no even if it was in your best interest. Carmen was admitting that she had always planned to override my wishes and control my life against my will. She genuinely believed that her judgment about what was best for me was more important than my own judgment about my own life. Carmen, what if David decided that you were incompetent to manage your own affairs, and he went to a lawyer to have you declared mentally unfit so he could control your money and decide where you lived? That's different. How is it different? Because I'm not old and vulnerable. I'm not incompetent and vulnerable either, Carmen. I'm an intelligent adult who's perfectly capable of managing my own life. But you won't always be. And when I'm not, I'll make appropriate arrangements. But I'll make them myself, not have them imposed on me by family members who want to control my money. Carmen was crying now, but I could tell that the tears were more about her fear of consequences than about genuine remorse for what she had done. Mom, what can I do to fix this? You can start by admitting that what you did was wrong. I admit that I handled things badly. That's not the same thing, Carmen. Admit that I should have talked to you before consulting with lawyers. That's still not the same thing. What do you want me to say? I want you to say that you were wrong to lie about my competency, wrong to plan to steal my property, and wrong to try to control my life without my consent. Carmen couldn't bring herself to say those words, because saying them would require her to admit that her entire plan had been motivated by greed rather than love. That's when I made my final decision. I picked up my phone and called the police. I'd like to report an attempted case of elder abuse, I said while Carmen watched in horror. Ma'am, what type of elder abuse are you reporting? Financial abuse. My daughter has been planning to have me declared mentally incompetent so she can gain control of my property and money. Are you in immediate danger? No, but I have evidence of her plan, including recorded conversations and written documentation. We'll send an officer to take a report. What's your address? I gave them my address and hung up the phone. Mom, you can't do this, Carmen said, now sobbing. I can, and I am. This will destroy my family. Your family is already destroyed. Carmen, you destroyed it when you decided that stealing from me was more important than having an honest relationship with me. I wasn't trying to steal from you. Carmen, even now, Even after everything that's happened, you still can't admit what you were really doing. I was trying to take care of you. You were trying to take control of me. And the fact that you can't tell the difference between those two things proves that you're not fit to make decisions about anyone's life, including your own. The police arrived 20 minutes later, and I provided them with copies of Carmen's notebook, the lawyer's letter, the business cards, and the recording of our conversation. Carmen tried to explain to the officers that she had been motivated by concern for my welfare, but the evidence of her fraudulent documentation and her recorded admissions made it clear that she had been planning to commit elder abuse. The investigation that followed revealed that Carmen's plan was even more elaborate than I had realized. Detective Sarah Wilson was assigned to investigate Carmen's attempted elder abuse, and what she discovered during her investigation shocked even me. Carmen hadn't just been planning to steal my house and money. She had been part of a larger network of people who specialized in defrauding elderly family members. Mrs. Rodriguez, your daughter was working with a group of lawyers, financial advisors, and healthcare workers who have been systematically targeting elderly people with substantial assets. Detective Wilson explained during one of our meetings. How many people were involved? At least 12 people that we've identified so far. They have a system for identifying elderly targets, building fraudulent cases for incompetency, and then dividing up the assets once they gain control. How did Carmen get involved with these people? We think she was recruited through her job. Several of the other people in the network work in healthcare, finance, and legal services, and they target family members who have access to elderly relatives with money. Detective Wilson explained that the network had been operating for over 3 years and had successfully defrauded at least 15 families out of millions of dollars in property and savings. They specialized in cases where the victims were socially isolated, had adult children who lived far away, or had family dynamics that could be exploited to support fraudulent guardianship claims. Your case is actually what broke the network open, Detective Wilson told me. Because you fought back and gathered evidence, we were able to trace the connections between all the different players. What's going to happen to Carmen? She's being charged with attempted elder abuse, conspiracy to commit fraud, and racketeering. She's looking at significant prison time, and she'll have to pay restitution to all the victims of the network. What about the other victims? Many of them are getting their property and money back, though some of the assets were already spent or hidden. It's a complex investigation that will probably take years to fully resolve. Detective Wilson also told me that Carmen had been receiving payments from the network for recruiting me as a target and gathering documentation to support the guardianship case. She wasn't just planning to steal my money. She was being paid by other criminals to help them steal from me. Mrs. Rodriguez, your daughter was never planning to manage your assets for your benefit. She was planning to turn them over to the network, which would have liquidated everything and split the proceeds among the conspirators. The revelation that Carmen had been working with professional criminals to steal from me was somehow even more hurtful than discovering that she had been planning to steal from me on her own. It meant that she had viewed me not as her mother but as a target to be exploited for financial gain. But the investigation also revealed something that gave me hope for the future. During the investigation, Detective Wilson contacted my neighbors, friends, and healthcare providers to verify Carmen's claims about my supposed incompetency and decline. What she discovered was that everyone who actually knew me well had been concerned about Carmen's behavior, not mine. Mrs. Garcia next door told us that Carmen had been asking strange questions about your daily routines and your financial situation, Detective Wilson reported. She thought it was odd that Carmen seemed more interested in your assets than your health. Your doctor told us that Carmen had been calling his office repeatedly asking about your mental status and trying to get information about your medical records without your consent. Your priest told us that Carmen had approached him after church several times, asking whether he had noticed any changes in your behavior or memory. All of these people had found Carmen's questions inappropriate and suspicious, but none of them had realized that she was gathering information for a criminal conspiracy. They had been protecting my privacy by refusing to give her the information she was seeking. Mrs. Rodriguez, everyone we spoke to described you as alert, competent, and fully capable of managing your own affairs. Several people mentioned that they had been worried about Carmen's motives, not your abilities. The investigation proved that Carmen's documentation of my supposed decline was completely fabricated. I wasn't suffering from memory problems, hygiene issues, or housekeeping failures. Carmen had been lying about everything to support her fraudulent guardianship case. Your case has actually led to some important changes in how guardianship proceedings are handled in Arizona. Detective Wilson told me. The courts are now requiring more rigorous medical evaluations and independent investigations before granting guardianship over elderly people. 6 months after Carmen's arrest, my life had completely changed for the better. Today, I'm living exactly the same life I was living before Carmen's dinner party attack. Except that I'm no longer worried about family members trying to steal from me or control my decisions. I'm in my own house, managing my own affairs, and making my own choices about how to spend my time and money. I've developed stronger relationships with my neighbors, my friends at church, and my healthcare providers, all of whom have told me that they're relieved that Carmen's criminal behavior was exposed before she could hurt me. Many of them had been concerned about her intentions but hadn't known how to address their concerns appropriately. My brother Roberto visited from California after hearing about Carmen's arrest, and we've started talking regularly about family finances and future planning. But these conversations are based on honesty, respect, and my explicit consent, rather than manipulation and deception. Teresa, I want you to know that I never supported Carmen's plan. Roberto told me during his visit, when she told me she was concerned about your welfare, I suggested that she talk to you directly rather than consulting with lawyers behind your back. Roberto has helped me set up proper estate planning and healthcare directives that reflect my actual wishes, rather than Carmen's assumptions about what would be best for me. I now have legal documents that clearly specify how I want my affairs managed if I ever do become unable to manage them myself. Most importantly, I've learned to trust my own instincts about people's motives, and to speak up when something doesn't feel right. Carmen's attack on my competency and dignity taught me that I'm much stronger and smarter than I had given myself credit for. The trial was a watershed moment for elder abuse prosecution in Arizona. Carmen's trial lasted 4 weeks and received extensive media coverage because it was the first major prosecution of an elder abuse network in Arizona. The evidence against her and her co-conspirators was overwhelming, including recorded conversations, fraudulent documentation, and testimony from multiple victims. When it was my turn to testify, I told the jury about the dinner party where Carmen had humiliated me by claiming I smelled like urine, and how that attack had been part of a calculated plan to gather evidence for fraudulent guardianship proceedings. The most hurtful part, I told the jury, wasn't that my daughter wanted my money. The most hurtful part was that she was willing to destroy my reputation and my dignity to get it. I played the recording I had made of Carmen admitting her plan to control my property and my life, and I showed the jury the notebook where she had documented false evidence of my supposed incompetency. My daughter spent months lying about my mental state, my physical condition, and my ability to care for myself. She did this not because she was concerned about my welfare, but because she was being paid by criminals to help them steal from me. The prosecution presented evidence that Carmen had received over $50,000 in payments from the criminal network for her role in targeting me and other elderly victims. She wasn't just a daughter who had made bad decisions about her mother's care, she was a professional criminal who specialized in defrauding elderly people. Carmen's defense attorney tried to argue that she had been motivated by genuine concern for my welfare, and that she had been manipulated by the other members of the criminal network. But the evidence showed that she had been an enthusiastic and active participant in the conspiracy. The jury deliberated for less than 6 hours before returning guilty verdicts on all charges. Carmen was sentenced to 8 years in prison and ordered to pay $2.3 million in restitution to all the victims of the network. But the most important outcome was that other families were protected from similar abuse. The investigation and prosecution of Carmen's criminal network led to important changes in how elder abuse cases are handled in Arizona and other states. Law enforcement agencies now have better training for recognizing the warning signs of guardianship fraud, and courts have implemented new safeguards to prevent criminals from manipulating the legal system. Your case has become a model for how elderly people can protect themselves from family members who want to exploit them. Detective Wilson told me at the conclusion of the investigation. You showed that it's possible to fight back against these criminals and win. I've started speaking at senior centers and community meetings about how to recognize the warning signs of elder abuse and how to protect yourself from family members who might try to manipulate guardianship proceedings. My story has helped other elderly people understand that they have rights and resources for fighting back against abuse. The most important thing I want people to understand, I tell my audiences, is that age doesn't make you helpless. Experience and wisdom are actually advantages when you're dealing with people who want to take advantage of you. I've also worked with legislators to strengthen elder abuse laws and create better protections for elderly people who are targeted by criminal networks like the one Carmen was part of. But the most meaningful change has been in my relationship with my grandchildren. Isabella and Miguel Jr. were devastated when they learned about their mother's criminal behavior, but they've also been incredibly supportive of me throughout the investigation and trial. They understood that I had been the victim of their mother's crimes, not a difficult elderly person who needed to be controlled.
Grandma, I'm so sorry that Mom did those things to you.
Isabella told me after the trial. I never knew that she was planning to steal from you. It's not your fault, Misha. Your mother made choices that hurt a lot of people, including you and your brother. I feel like I should have known something was wrong when she made those comments about you smelling bad. I knew it wasn't true, but I didn't know what to say. You were in an impossible situation, Isabella. Your mother put you in the position of having to choose between supporting her lies or defending me, and that wasn't fair to you. Miguel Jr. has had a harder time processing his mother's crimes, but he's also shown remarkable maturity in understanding that Carmen's actions were wrong regardless of her stated motivations. Grandma, I want you to know that I never believed the things Mom said about you needing help, he told me. You've always seemed perfectly capable of taking care of yourself. Both of my grandchildren now visit me regularly, and we have honest conversations about their mother's crimes and how those crimes affected our family. They're learning important lessons about integrity, honesty, and the difference between genuine care and manipulative control. David has also been supportive throughout this process, though he's struggling with guilt about his role in Carmen's plan. He's filed for divorce and is seeking counseling to understand how he became involved in criminal behavior. Today, my life is fuller and more meaningful than it was before Carmen's attack. When I look back on the night of my birthday dinner, when Carmen humiliated me by claiming I smelled like urine, I realized that her cruelty was actually a gift. It forced me to confront the reality of what she was trying to do to me, and it gave me the motivation to fight back against her criminal plan. If Carmen had been more subtle in her approach, if she had continued building her fraudulent case slowly and quietly, she might have succeeded in having me declared incompetent before I realized what was happening. Her decision to attack me so directly and publicly was the mistake that saved me from becoming another victim of elder abuse. Sometimes, I tell people who ask about my experience, the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing that could have happened to you. Carmen's attack taught me that I'm much stronger than I thought I was, much smarter than my daughter gave me credit for, and much more capable of protecting myself than anyone realized. It also taught me the importance of trusting my instincts when something feels wrong, even if the person doing wrong is someone I love. Most importantly, it taught me that family relationships based on honesty and respect are worth fighting for, while family relationships based on manipulation and control are worth ending, regardless of how painful that ending might be. I'm now 74 years old, living independently in my own home, managing my own finances, and making my own decisions about my future. I have strong relationships with people who value me for who I am, rather than what I own, and I have the knowledge and confidence to protect myself from anyone who might try to take advantage of me. When Carmen said, "My mom smells like pee" at my birthday dinner, she thought she was humiliating me into submission. Instead, she awakened a strength I didn't know I possessed, and a determination to protect myself that has transformed my life for the better. Today, I am a woman who defeated a criminal conspiracy and live to tell the story of how love and wisdom can triumph over greed and manipulation.